Imagine this. The sun caresses your skin as the endless ocean stretches out before you. Champagne in hand, carefree, surrounded by luxury. The perfect escape from reality. Now imagine that paradise becomes your worst nightmare. Welcome to Untold Nightmares. I'm your host, and tonight we'll sail the darkest waters of maritime terror. Because what you're about to hear isn't legend. It's real. Documented. Unexplained. Every year, more than 30 million people board cruise ships.
Why?
The answer is simple. They promise the perfect escape. No cooking, no cleaning, no thinking. Just floating in a 5-star hotel above the ocean. Endless buffets. Dazzling shows. Pools with a view of the horizon. It's the illusion of total control in the middle of nowhere. But here's the problem. You're in the middle of the ocean. Thousands of miles of water in every direction. No escape. No witnesses. And when something goes wrong, it really goes wrong. A cruise ship is a floating city, yes. But it's also a steel prison surrounded by water. And in these isolated places, where international laws blur and jurisdictions overlap, you disappear into the anonymity of the sea. Think about it. You're surrounded by thousands of people, but no one really knows you. Security systems have blind spots. Cameras don't cover every corner. And the ocean leaves no evidence. Tonight, I'll tell you 3 stories that will forever change the way you view a dream trip. 3 documented cases that shipping companies would rather you forget. Let's start with the first one. March 16, 2011. The Carnival Destiny cruise ship sails through the Caribbean. On board, a 21-year-old woman named Rebecca Corium.
British.
Ship's crew. A woman described by everyone as cheerful, responsible, with her whole life ahead of her. At 5:45 a.m., security cameras capture her for the last time. She's on deck 5, talking on the phone. She looks distressed. She wipes away tears. The call ends. And after that, nothing. Rebecca Corium vanished. Literally. As if the ocean had swallowed her. His absence wasn't noticed until 11 a.m., when he didn't show up for his shift. The search began immediately. They checked every corner of the ship. Every cabin. Every storage space. Every bathroom. Nothing. The only thing they found was a sandal. A single sandal, in a section of the deck known as the crew deck, a passenger-restricted area, buffeted by wind and waves. This is where the story gets disturbing. Carnival Cruise Line's official version was swift and clear. Rebecca fell overboard. A tragic accident.
Case closed.
But there are problems. Big problems. First, the railings in that area are over 5 feet high. Rebecca was 5 feet 6 inches. How did you accidentally fall over those railings? Second, witnesses reported seeing bruises on her face days before her disappearance. The company denied this. Third, the FBI was never able to properly interrogate the crew because the ship was sailing under the Panamanian flag, complicating legal jurisdiction. Fourth, and perhaps most chilling, several crew members reported seeing Rebecca after her supposed disappearance. In the hallways. In her cabin. But when they went looking for her, no one was there. Rebecca's parents traveled to the Bahamas to meet with the captain. They were shown exactly 6 minutes of security camera footage. 6 minutes of a journey that lasted days. And the other cameras? They didn't work, they said. The theories are endless and all disturbing. Was she murdered by a crew member and her body thrown into the sea? Did she discover something she shouldn't have and was silenced? Or did it simply vanish in one of those unexplained anomalies that occur on the high seas? More than a decade has passed. The case remains unsolved. Rebecca Corium is officially one of the more than 300 people who have disappeared from cruise ships in the last 20 years. 300. Think about that number. But if you think an unexplained disappearance is the worst thing that can happen on a cruise ship, wait until you hear this. July 2019. The Norwegian epic cruises the Mediterranean. Thousands of passengers enjoy a perfect night under the stars. Among them is Ariston Liu, a 56-year-old entrepreneur traveling with his wife to celebrate their anniversary. At 3 a.m., his wife wakes up. Ariston isn't in bed. He steps out onto the private balcony of his suite, and he finds him, hanging from the outside of the balcony.
Dead.
The scene was impossible. Ariston had climbed the railing of his 11th floor suite's balcony and apparently let himself fall. But here's the problem. There was no suicide note. There was no history of depression. Witnesses said he had been perfectly happy that evening. He had dinner with his wife. They laughed. They danced. And what about the security cameras in the hallway? Conveniently, they didn't capture anything useful. The autopsy revealed something disturbing. Bruises on his arms consistent with a struggle. Defensive marks. As if someone had helped him. But Norwegian Cruise Line quickly closed the investigation. The official conclusion: suicide. The family was devastated and filled with questions. This is not an isolated case. In 2016, aboard the Brilliance of the Seas, a passenger named Kenneth Manzanares brutally murdered his wife in their cabin. He beat her to death while their children screamed in the hallway. How long did it take for security to respond? Too much. And you know what's scariest? The actual statistics. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, more than 100 suspicious deaths were reported on cruise ships between 2009 and 2019. But that number only includes ships reporting under U.S. jurisdiction. How many more occur in international waters where the laws are gray? How many accidents are actually covert murders? Here's the cruise industry's dirty secret. They don't want you to know. Every incident is bad for business. Every full investigation is costly. Every negative headline hurts bookings. So they minimize. They hide. They pay for silence. Former cruise ship security personnel have revealed in anonymous interviews that falls overboard are surprisingly common. And in many cases, there are no witnesses because there aren't supposed to be. Think about it. You're in the middle of the ocean. Total darkness. No one can hear your screams over the roar of the engines. A quick push. A silent splash into the night. By the time someone notices you're missing, the ship has already traveled miles. And the ocean doesn't give up its secrets. But sometimes those secrets find a way to come back. And that brings us to our final story. The most disturbing of all. Sarah Mitchell, deckhand, 2011. It was my night shift. I was cleaning the hallway on deck 7 when I heard footsteps behind me. Wet footsteps. Like someone had gotten out of the pool. I turned around, and there was no one there. But the footprints were there. Wet footprints that appeared out of nowhere and vanished in front of me. I followed the footprints until they ended at the wall. Marcus Chun, passenger, 2015. My wife and I booked a suite on deck 9. Our first night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., we were awakened by a bang. A loud bang, like someone hitting metal with a hammer. It was coming from the bathroom. I went to check, and the temperature had dropped dramatically. I could see my breath. On the fogged-up mirror, there was writing. 2 words, help me. But the most active area, the true epicenter of the paranormal on the Queen Mary 2, is cabin R340. In 2008, a man named David Mortale committed suicide in that cabin. He hung himself. His body was found 3 hours later by housekeeping. Since then, dozens of passengers who have occupied that room have reported exactly the same phenomena. A dark shadow materializes in the corner of the room at 2 a.m. The sound of someone crying behind the bathroom door. The overwhelming feeling of being watched. And most disturbing, the physical sensation of hands around your neck as you try to sleep. Emma Rodriguez, maintenance crew member, 2018. I was sent to run a plumbing report on R340. It was midday. Daylight streaming in through the window. I walked in with my toolbox and immediately sensed something was wrong. The air was heavy. Dense. I started working on the sink and then I saw his reflection in the chrome faucet. A man. Hanging from the ceiling. But when I turned around, there was nothing. I dropped my tools and never went back into that room. I quit 2 weeks later. Cunard officially denies any paranormal activity. But curiously, cabin R340 has been removed from available inventory since 2019, officially due to permanent renovations. Renewals that take 5 years. But it's not just that cabin. Several areas of the ship have dark reputations. The pool on Deck 12, where a girl who drowned in 2006 is said to still play after dark, has been spotted. Passengers have reported seeing floating toys moving on their own and children laughing when the pool is empty. The theater, where during nighttime rehearsals, technicians have captured chairs folding up on their own and microphones activating with no one around on video. And, the most chilling, the ship's morgue.
Yes.
Cruise ships have morgues. They have to, because people die at sea more often than you might think. The Queen Mary 2 has capacity for 8 bodies. And according to medical personnel who spoke on condition of anonymity, it is rarely empty. A crew nurse, who asked to remain anonymous, shared this in 2020. I have to go to the morgue for daily temperature checks. It's protocol. But there are days when you open the door and, you know something's there with you. I've heard voices, murmurs, like the dead were having a conversation. One night, I swear I saw one of the coffins move. From the inside. I wasn't imagining it. The coffin rattled. I reported the incident and was told it was just engine vibrations. But that coffin was 3 levels away from the engine room. In 2017, a group of paranormal investigators managed to board the Queen Mary 2 as passengers with specialized equipment, EVP recorders, electromagnetic meters, infrared spectrum cameras. The recordings were never officially released. The company threatened lawsuits, but excerpts leaked online. In the audio recordings, they captured more than 20 distinct voices. Voices that say, "Help me. I can't get out. Too cold." And in the thermal images of Deck 7, near R340, they captured something that defies explanation, a complete humanoid figure, clearly visible, walking down the corridor. Body temperature, 12 degrees Celsius. The temperature of a corpse. The Queen Mary 2 is still operating. It's still carrying thousands of passengers every month. It's still selling the dream of floating luxury. But those who work there know the truth. Those who have been in those hallways in the early morning know the truth. That ship is a floating graveyard. And the dead haven't left. Rebecca Corium. Ariston Liu. The Countless Ghosts of the Queen Mary 2. 3 stories. 3 windows into a reality that the glossy holiday brochures will never mention. The truth about cruise ships is this: they're floating cities in the vastness of the ocean. Places where laws are complicated, oversight is minimal, and secrets can sink into deep waters without a trace. They are places where you can disappear and no one will find your body. Where you can die under suspicious circumstances and the case will be closed before the ship reaches the next port. Where the dead are trapped, floating eternally between heaven and the abyss. More than 30 million people will board a cruise this year. Most will have a memorable vacation. They'll take photos. They'll make friends. They'll return home with happy stories. But some will experience something that will change their perception of the ocean forever. And a few will never return. The next time you see a cruise ship ad, with its images of perfect sunsets and endless luxury, remember these stories. Remember Rebecca, disappearing into nothingness. Remember Ariston, hanging where he shouldn't be. Remember the ghosts of the Queen Mary 2, trapped on an endless journey. Because the ocean is beautiful, infinite, majestic, but it is also profound,
Dark.
and hungry. I'm your host. This has been Untold Nightmares. Sleep well if you can.